Alex stepped carefully through the dense forest, his boots sinking slightly into the soft moss. The air smelled fresh, but it was strange and foreign. He had traveled far from the human colonies, following signals from an unexplored planet. The mission was simple: scout and report. What he did not expect was what he found. Among the trees, partially hidden in a grove, was the wreckage of a ship. The metal was twisted, burned, and scattered across the ground. Smoke still rose from some parts, and sparks flickered from exposed circuits. He paused, studying the debris. Something inside told him not to approach carelessly. As he circled the wreck, a faint sound caught his attention. It was a weak, almost human-like whimper. Alex froze, his eyes scanning the ground. Then, he saw her. She lay half-covered by pieces of the ship, her body exposed and covered in bruises and scratches. Her skin had a pale, soft tone that seemed almost delicate against the harsh forest background. Her hair, dark and tangled, framed her face, and her eyes were what struck him most. They were wide, shining, and filled with a silent plea. They asked him to stay, to help, to not leave her behind. Alex's training as an explorer did not prepare him for this. He knelt beside her slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. She flinched at his voice, her body trembling, but did not turn away. He realized she was too weak to move on her own. Carefully, he lifted her, feeling how fragile she was. Each movement was slow, deliberate, as if one wrong step could break her completely. Once he carried her a short distance, Alex found a small clearing where he could make a shelter. He used parts of the ship and branches from the trees, arranging them to provide shade and some protection from the elements. Then he set her down gently. Myra, as he later learned her name, did not speak, but she watched him closely, her eyes still pleading for his presence. Alex fetched water from a nearby stream, using a small cup to let her drink. She took it slowly, almost afraid, but did not push him away. Alex worked carefully, cleaning her wounds with water and makeshift cloth. He applied basic antiseptic from his survival kit, making sure she was as comfortable as possible. Myra's body was weak, but she endured quietly, her breathing shallow and uneven. Alex could feel her fear, her hopelessness. She had survived something terrible, and it was clear that she had been alone for some time. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing. Alex built a small fire to keep them warm. He kept it low, knowing that the light could attract predators, but enough to provide heat. Myra's eyes reflected the flickering light, and for the first time, a small movement crossed her lips. She let out a soft sigh, almost as if she were grateful. Alex smiled gently, though he was worried. "You're safe now," he said. "I'm not leaving you here." He watched her for a long time as night settled over the forest. The sounds of alien creatures echoed in the distance, making him alert. Yet, Myra remained still, her body relaxed slightly in his presence. He realized that trust could not be rushed, but it could begin with small gestures. His presence alone seemed to reassure her. She blinked slowly, almost nodding as if acknowledging that he was there to protect her. Alex knew that the next days would be challenging. He would need to find food, make stronger shelter, and ensure they were safe from the dangers of this world. But for now, he focused on the small victories, that she drank water, that she allowed him to touch her wounds, and that her eyes, though still haunted, seemed to hold a spark of hope. As he finally leaned back against a tree, exhausted, he realized how different this mission had become. He had not come looking for a companion, yet here she was, broken and hopeless, but somehow alive. Her silent plea had reached him, and he could not ignore it. The forest was dangerous, the night long, and the future uncertain. But Alex knew one thing with absolute clarity: he would not leave her side. Through the darkness, Myra's eyes never left him, a quiet promise shining in their depths. Alex closed his eyes for a moment, letting himself feel that connection, that small but powerful bond that had formed in the wreckage of a broken ship. Whatever the challenges ahead, he knew he had to keep her alive. Not because it was a mission, but because she had asked him to stay. The next morning, Alex woke to soft sunlight filtering through the trees. Myra was still asleep, her breathing even and quiet. He watched her for a moment, noting the small rise and fall of her chest. Despite the injuries and the terror she had endured, she was alive, and that was what mattered most. Alex gently stood and moved to collect water from the stream. He knew that for her to recover, she needed more than just rest. Food, warmth, and comfort would help her body and mind begin to heal. When he returned, Myra stirred. Her dark hair fell across her face, and she blinked slowly as if unsure where she was. Alex smiled softly. "Good morning," he said. She looked at him with cautious eyes, not yet ready to speak or move. He set the water and a small portion of food near her. Slowly, she reached out, touching the cup with trembling fingers. Alex kept his voice calm. "Drink slowly. You need energy." Myra obeyed carefully, taking tiny sips. Alex noticed the way her eyes followed his every movement. Even though she could not speak, her expressions were clear. Fear, gratitude, and a quiet curiosity shone through. Alex understood that trust had to grow slowly. He spoke in gentle tones, explaining what he was doing as he checked her wounds. "This will help you heal. I am not going to leave." Myra nodded slightly, a subtle gesture that made Alex's chest feel lighter. As the hours passed, Alex helped Myra sit upright. She leaned on him for support, and he held her gently, careful not to hurt her injured body. She let out a soft sound, almost like a sigh, but it carried relief. Alex smiled. "You are stronger than you think," he said. Myra looked at him, her dark eyes studying him as if trying to understand who he was and why he was helping her. The silence between them was not empty, it was filled with connection, a growing understanding that they were no longer alone. Alex decided they needed to improve their shelter. He gathered stronger branches and covered the fragile structure with pieces of the ship he had salvaged. Myra watched, sometimes helping by handing him small items she could reach. It was the first time she moved with purpose since he had found her. Alex felt a small thrill of hope. She was beginning to participate, showing a willingness to trust and learn again. Later, Alex found a small device among the ship's wreckage. It had lights and buttons that he did not fully understand, but he guessed it could store information. He brought it back to Myra. Hesitant at first, she reached out to touch it. The device responded, showing images of her ship, her crew, and strange landscapes. Alex tried to explain, "This is your ship. These are your people." Myra's eyes widened, and she pointed at herself and then at the images. Alex nodded, understanding her question. "Yes, it is you. You were not alone before, but now you have a chance to survive." Myra's hands trembled as she touched the device. Alex watched carefully, letting her take the time she needed. Her eyes, once filled with hopelessness, now glimmered with something new. Curiosity, a spark of life that had been missing, began to shine through. She looked at Alex, and for the first time, she smiled faintly. It was small, almost shy, but it was there. Alex knew the forest was dangerous. Predators could be nearby, and the wreckage of the ship might attract enemies. He decided they needed to stay alert. He taught Myra simple ways to observe their surroundings, to notice movements and sounds. She learned quickly, her instincts sharp despite her weakened state. Alex realized that her species was naturally alert, capable of noticing details humans often missed. Together, they began forming a small routine, checking the shelter, collecting food, and staying safe. By the end of the day, Myra was resting again, leaning against a tree while Alex watched the forest around them. He felt a sense of pride and relief. She had begun to recover, both physically and emotionally. She had allowed him to help, to teach, and to protect her. The bond between them grew stronger with every shared task, every small moment of understanding. Alex knew that the coming days would be difficult, but he also knew that Myra was beginning to trust him, and that trust was the foundation for everything else. As the sun set, Alex and Myra sat quietly near the fire. Myra's eyes followed him, filled with a calm that had not been there before. Alex spoke softly. "You are safe now. We will face this together." Myra nodded slightly, her hand brushing against his. It was a small gesture, but it carried meaning. Hope was returning, and with it, the first signs of courage. Alex understood that saving her was no longer just about survival. It was about giving her a reason to live, a reason to trust, and a reason to hope again. That night, as the forest darkened around them, Myra rested peacefully. Alex stayed awake, keeping watch, feeling a new sense of purpose. He had found her broken and hopeless, but he could see that she was beginning to heal. Together, they would face the dangers of this world. Together, they would survive. And for the first time since he had found her, Alex felt a deep certainty that they could overcome whatever came next. The next morning, the forest seemed quiet, but Alex knew that danger was never far away. He had spent hours teaching Myra to notice small movements, to listen for unusual sounds, and to trust her instincts. She followed his instructions carefully, her dark eyes alert and focused. Despite her injuries, she moved with surprising precision, showing that her body was slowly regaining strength. Alex felt a growing admiration for her courage. As they explored the area near their shelter, Alex found broken branches and footprints that were not from the ship. They were large, clawed, and fresh. He signaled Myra to stop and crouched low, examining the tracks. "These are not friendly," he whispered. Myra tilted her head, understanding the warning without needing words. She pressed close to him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Alex could feel her tension, but also her trust. He nodded at her silently and began to think about how to protect them both. Suddenly, a rustling came from the bushes nearby. Alex froze, scanning the trees. Myra moved instinctively, stepping behind him. From the shadows, a group of alien creatures emerged. They were larger than humans, covered in dark scales, with sharp claws and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Alex's heart raced, but he stayed calm. He whispered to Myra, "Stay close and follow me." She nodded, her grip on his arm firm but steady. The creatures circled them, testing the humans with low growls. Alex picked up a sturdy branch and held it defensively. Myra's eyes widened, but she did not move away. She raised her hand slightly, as if ready to react to any movement. Alex realized that she had courage despite her fear. They were no longer helpless. Together, they stood their ground. One of the creatures lunged at them, and Alex swung the branch with all his strength, striking it across the side. It hissed and recoiled, but another took its place. Myra reacted instinctively, grabbing a sharp piece of metal from the wreckage and holding it in front of her. She did not strike yet, she was careful, waiting for the right moment. Alex admired her focus. He had never seen anyone so broken yet so determined at the same time. The creatures attacked in waves, testing their defenses. Alex and Myra moved together, protecting each other. When one came too close, Myra jabbed carefully with the metal, forcing it back. Alex struck with the branch again, and they managed to push the creatures away from the shelter. They backed toward a narrow path that led deeper into the forest, guiding the creatures away from their temporary home. Their teamwork was instinctive, almost wordless. They had learned each other's movements in a short time. After a tense struggle, the creatures retreated into the shadows. Alex and Myra stood panting, covered in sweat and dirt. Myra's hands shook, but she was smiling faintly, a mix of relief and pride. Alex nodded at her. "You did very well," he said. Myra's eyes brightened slightly, and she touched his arm. The gesture was small, but it spoke volumes. She trusted him, and he trusted her. Once the creatures were gone, Alex checked their surroundings carefully. He knew they could return, so he decided they needed a stronger plan. He found a high ridge overlooking the forest and guided Myra there. From this vantage point, they could see predators approaching from a distance. Myra learned to signal with hand movements, letting Alex know when something was near. Together, they developed a system to watch for danger and respond quickly. As the sun began to set, they returned to the shelter, exhausted but safe. Myra sat down beside the fire, her hands folded in her lap. She looked at Alex and offered a small smile. Alex responded with a nod, feeling a deep connection growing between them. They had faced danger together, and neither had faltered. For the first time since he had found her, Alex saw hope in Myra's eyes. She had survived not only the crash but now the forest's predators as well. That night, Alex kept watch while Myra slept. He thought about how far she had come in just a few days. From a broken and hopeless survivor, she had become alert, cautious, and brave. Her trust in him had grown, and she had shown that she could act with courage when needed. Alex realized that their partnership was more than survival. It was a bond formed in danger, trust, and shared effort. Myra stirred in her sleep and opened her eyes briefly, looking at him. Alex smiled softly. "We will keep each other safe," he said. Myra blinked slowly, her dark eyes reflecting the firelight, as if she understood completely. The night was quiet, but both knew that challenges awaited them. Together, they had faced the first real threat, and they had survived. That survival brought more than relief. It brought confidence and a sense of unity. Alex settled back, keeping his senses alert. Myra's hand found his briefly in the dark, a silent reassurance that she was ready to face what came next. He held her hand lightly, feeling the warmth and the small but powerful connection that had begun between them. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he knew that they would face them together. They had already survived the first test, and now they were stronger because of it. The next morning, Alex woke early. Myra was sitting quietly near the fire, staring at the rising sun. Her dark eyes reflected a mixture of curiosity and sadness. Alex could sense that she was thinking about her past. He approached her gently and sat down. "Do you want to talk about your ship?" he asked softly. Myra looked at him, hesitant at first, then nodded slowly. She had not spoken much since he found her, but he could see that she trusted him enough to begin. She pointed to the device he had found among the wreckage. Alex handed it to her. She tapped on the images, showing scenes of her crew, her home planet, and the sky full of stars. Her fingers traced the pictures carefully, almost as if she could feel the memories beneath the images. Alex watched her, trying to understand what she was feeling. Myra's body trembled slightly, and he realized that she missed her people. "I will help you find them," Alex said. Myra's eyes met his. There was a small spark of hope there, a fragile light that had begun to grow. She nodded again, her hand brushing against his. It was a simple gesture, but Alex understood the meaning. She was ready to face the journey ahead, but she needed guidance and protection. He would give both. After a small breakfast, they prepared to explore further. Alex carried Myra carefully at first, but soon she was strong enough to walk short distances on her own. They moved through the forest, keeping to higher ground and avoiding areas where predators might hide. Myra watched closely, pointing out unusual plants and listening to the sounds of the forest. Alex realized that she had learned quickly from their first encounter with the creatures. Her instincts were sharp, and her presence made him feel safer. As they traveled, Myra began to point at some of the wreckage from her ship scattered in the forest. Alex helped her inspect the pieces. She tapped on a section of the hull and whispered something in her language. Alex did not understand the words, but he understood the emotion. It was sorrow, frustration, and determination all at once. Myra had survived alone for a long time, and each piece of her ship reminded her of what she had lost. Alex stayed close, offering silent support. They reached a small clearing where the trees opened to the sky. Myra stopped and looked up, her dark eyes scanning the horizon. Alex followed her gaze. In the distance, he could see the faint outline of mountains. He guessed that they could find resources there and maybe signs of other survivors. Myra looked at him with determination. Alex smiled and nodded. "We will go there," he said. Her expression brightened slightly, and for the first time, she spoke a few words in their shared language. Alex listened carefully, nodding and encouraging her. As they moved toward the mountains, Alex noticed that Myra was becoming more confident. She no longer flinched at small sounds, and she carried herself with purpose. They stopped by a small stream to rest. Myra knelt to drink, and Alex sat beside her, keeping watch. The forest was quiet, but Alex knew that danger could appear at any moment. He admired Myra's resilience. Despite everything she had suffered, she continued to move forward, to trust, and to hope. While they rested, Myra pointed to a patch of forest nearby. Alex approached carefully and found a small object partially buried in the ground. He dug it out and realized it was a small communication device from her ship. Myra's eyes lit up. She pressed a button, and the device emitted a soft beep. Alex looked at her, and she smiled faintly. It was a connection to her past, a reminder that she was not completely alone. Alex felt a sense of relief. They had found a piece of her history, and it gave them direction for the next steps. They continued toward the mountains, moving carefully through the dense forest. Alex led the way, keeping an eye on the surroundings, while Myra followed with quiet confidence. The bond between them had grown stronger. Each step they took together was a step toward healing and trust. Myra no longer seemed like the broken, hopeless survivor he had found. She was becoming strong, focused, and ready to face challenges. By the end of the day, they reached the foothills of the mountains. The terrain was rough, but Alex helped Myra climb over rocks and through narrow paths. She leaned on him when needed, but she also took initiative, showing that she had learned to rely on her own strength as well. As the sun set behind the mountains, they found a safe place to rest. Myra looked at the sky, her eyes reflecting the fading light. She turned to Alex and smiled softly, a smile filled with hope, trust, and gratitude. Alex sat beside her, watching the stars begin to appear. He knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but he also knew that together they could face it. Myra had survived the crash, the forest, and the first challenges of life after her ship. Now, she was ready to move forward, and he would be there with her every step of the way. The past was painful, but the future was full of possibility. They had found strength in each other, and that was the most important discovery of all. The next morning, Alex woke to the sound of wind moving through the mountain trees. Myra was already awake, standing near the edge of the clearing, looking at the path ahead. Her dark eyes were sharp, focused, and full of determination. Alex joined her, carrying their small pack of supplies. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Myra nodded, and together they began to climb higher into the mountains. The path was rocky and uneven. Alex helped Myra over large stones and through narrow spaces, but she walked steadily on her own whenever she could. She had grown stronger and more confident with each day that passed. Her movements were careful but assured. Alex watched her with admiration. He could see that the forest had changed her, and his guidance had helped her begin to trust herself again. As they climbed, Myra stopped suddenly and pointed to a large rock formation ahead. Alex followed her gaze and noticed faint markings on the stone, symbols that glowed faintly in the morning light. Myra moved closer, studying them carefully. Alex stayed behind, watching her protectively. Myra reached out to touch the symbols, her fingers brushing the cold stone. "These are messages," she whispered, speaking in her language. Alex nodded, sensing that these markings were a clue about her people. Myra studied the symbols and then looked at Alex. He could see a mix of hope and urgency in her eyes. She led him toward the rocks, carefully tracing the symbols with her hands. Alex realized that they were a kind of map, showing the direction to a location in the mountains where her people might have gone or left something important. Myra's face lit up with cautious excitement. Alex felt a sense of purpose. This was what they had been searching for, a connection to her past and a way forward. They followed the path marked by the symbols, moving carefully through narrow trails and steep slopes. Alex made sure to stay close to Myra, ready to assist whenever the terrain became difficult. She leaned on him when needed, but she also took the lead at times, showing that she was no longer the fragile, hopeless survivor he had found. Together, they formed a steady rhythm, each step building trust and confidence. After a long climb, they reached a small plateau. From there, they could see a hidden valley below, surrounded by high cliffs and dense forests. Myra's eyes widened. She pointed toward the valley, then whispered something to Alex. He understood immediately. There were structures in the valley, small buildings or shelters that looked abandoned but intact. Myra's people might have been there. Alex felt a surge of hope. They were close to answers, and perhaps even to a reunion with her lost companions. Carefully, they began their descent into the valley. The terrain was tricky, but Alex guided Myra, and she followed without hesitation. Along the way, Myra pointed out plants and small animals, explaining their uses in her language. Alex listened attentively, learning from her as she had learned from him. Their partnership had become a true collaboration. They relied on each other, and their bond was stronger than ever. As they entered the valley, they found signs of recent activity. Small fires had burned recently, and footprints marked the soft ground. Myra's eyes sparkled with anticipation and caution. She moved quietly, examining the evidence. Alex stayed close, ready to react if danger appeared. He could see that Myra had grown alert and confident, able to face unknown challenges without fear. They reached the first structure, a small shelter made of metal and stone. Myra opened the door carefully, revealing a room that had been abandoned but still contained supplies and tools. She touched the items, her fingers brushing against familiar textures. Alex watched her, sensing her emotions. Relief, recognition, and determination all crossed her face. She had found part of her people's world, and now she had direction. Alex set down the supplies and looked at Myra. "We are close," he said. Myra nodded, her dark eyes shining. She moved to the next building, carefully checking each one. Each structure they explored brought more clues, more understanding of what had happened to her people. Alex stayed by her side, supporting her and protecting her. They had faced danger together, and now they were uncovering the truth together. By the end of the day, they had explored several structures and gathered enough supplies to continue their journey. Myra sat on a stone, looking out over the valley. She turned to Alex and offered a small, genuine smile. He returned it, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and hope. They had survived the forest, faced predators, and now they were discovering the secrets of her past. The path ahead was still uncertain, but they had each other, and that was enough to face whatever came next. As the sun set, casting golden light over the valley, Alex and Myra set up a small camp. Myra carefully arranged the supplies, her movements deliberate and calm. Alex built a fire, keeping watch for any signs of danger. Myra sat close, her hand brushing his occasionally, a silent reassurance that she trusted him completely. They had grown stronger together, and their bond had become unbreakable. That night, as the stars appeared above the valley, Alex and Myra rested with a sense of hope. They had discovered clues about her people, strengthened their partnership, and survived the challenges of the forest and mountains. The journey was far from over, but they were ready. Together, they could face whatever came next and find the answers they had been searching for. The next morning, Alex and Myra woke to a cool breeze flowing through the valley. The sun cast soft light over the mountains, making the landscape shimmer. Myra stood near the edge of the camp, her dark eyes scanning the surroundings. Alex joined her, carrying their packs and checking the path ahead. Today, they needed to follow the trail left by her people and uncover the next clue about where they had gone. They began their journey carefully, moving through the valley and over small ridges. Myra led the way, pointing out signs that Alex could not recognize. Broken branches, footprints, and marks on rocks guided them. Alex followed closely, keeping watch for any danger. The forest around the valley was quiet but alive. Birds called from the trees, and small animals darted through the underbrush. Myra moved confidently, her training and experience from her world guiding her through the unfamiliar terrain. As they climbed higher, the valley narrowed, and the path became steeper. Myra stopped suddenly, crouching low behind a large rock. Alex followed her lead. Ahead, in a narrow pass between two cliffs, they saw figures moving. The shapes were humanoid but wore clothing unlike anything Alex had seen. They carried tools and supplies and seemed unaware of Alex and Myra. Myra whispered, signaling Alex to stay hidden. Her eyes were alert, scanning every detail. Alex watched as Myra slowly rose and stepped forward. She called out in her language, a soft but clear tone. The figures froze and turned toward her. Myra stepped closer, showing them that she meant no harm. The group hesitated, then approached carefully. Myra spoke to them, pointing to herself and to Alex. After a moment, one of the figures nodded and smiled. Myra turned to Alex, explaining that these were members of her people who had survived the journey after the ship crash. Alex felt a surge of relief and wonder. Myra's eyes glimmered with happiness. She had found her people, and the journey that had begun in despair was now leading toward hope. The small group guided them deeper into the narrow pass, showing signs of where they had settled. Alex noticed the shelters they had built, simple but sturdy structures that blended with the mountain landscape. Smoke rose from small fires, and he could hear the soft hum of voices. Myra moved among her people, reconnecting with gestures and soft words. Alex stayed close, watching with admiration. He could see the relief and gratitude in their eyes as they realized Myra had survived and returned. She spoke to them, explaining what had happened since the crash, and they listened with rapt attention. Alex realized that Myra was now not only a survivor but also a leader among her people. As the group led them further, Alex noticed that the path became more dangerous. Loose rocks and steep drops made every step a careful choice. Myra walked steadily, helping guide her people and Alex along the safest routes. He offered his support when needed, and she accepted it graciously. Their teamwork was seamless, and the trust between them had grown even stronger. At the center of the settlement, they found a small open area where the group gathered to discuss their plans. Myra stood among them, speaking with authority and warmth. Alex watched as she encouraged her people to rebuild, to explore beyond the valley, and to regain what had been lost. Her confidence was inspiring. The group listened and began to follow her suggestions, organizing themselves and preparing for the challenges ahead. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the valley. Rocks tumbled from the cliffs above, and the group froze. Alex immediately moved to Myra's side, shielding her from falling debris. Myra reacted quickly, signaling her people to take cover. The noise continued, growing louder as more rocks fell. It became clear that the cliffs above were unstable. Alex realized that they needed to move fast or risk being trapped. Myra led the group toward a safer path, carefully guiding each person and ensuring that no one was left behind. Alex helped by carrying supplies and supporting those who struggled. The descent was slow and tense, but with Myra's knowledge of the area and Alex's strength, they managed to reach a stable part of the valley. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Myra turned to Alex, her dark eyes filled with gratitude. He nodded, feeling proud of their teamwork. That night, as the group settled in a safer part of the valley, Myra and Alex sat together near a small fire. Myra's people had built a place for them to rest, and the camp was calm. Alex looked at Myra, seeing not just the survivor he had found but a strong, determined leader who had reclaimed hope for her people. Myra leaned back slightly, her hand brushing against his. She did not need words to express her thanks and trust. The journey had been long and difficult, but they had reached a turning point. Myra had found her people, and together they had faced danger and uncertainty. Alex knew that the final steps of their journey were approaching, and that the future held more challenges, but also the promise of discovery, healing, and connection. The bond between them had grown unbreakable, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. The next morning, the valley was calm, with sunlight streaming over the mountains and warming the small settlement. Myra woke early, her dark eyes alert and focused. Alex was already awake, checking the perimeter of the camp and making sure everything was secure. The events of the previous days had brought them closer, and they now moved together naturally, each anticipating the needs of the other. Myra gathered her people in the central area of the settlement. She spoke with calm authority, explaining that it was time to explore the lands beyond the valley. Many of her people were hesitant, but her confidence inspired them. Alex stood beside her, offering quiet support. He could see the determination in Myra's eyes. She had grown into her strength, and he had grown into his role as her protector and companion. Before they left, Myra checked the supplies. Alex helped her pack food, tools, and other essentials. She made sure everyone was prepared for the journey ahead. The group set out, moving carefully through the valley and over the rocky trails that led to the outer mountains. Myra led with purpose, and Alex stayed close, ensuring that no one fell behind. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows on the cliffs, but the group pressed on, driven by hope and the promise of discovery. As they moved through a narrow canyon, the air grew cooler and the path steeper. Suddenly, they heard a deep rumble from above. Rocks shifted on the cliffs, and a small landslide began. Myra reacted immediately, signaling her people to move quickly to the sides of the path. Alex pushed Myra gently toward safety while helping others avoid the falling stones. The group worked together, guided by Myra's calm authority and Alex's steady support. Once the danger passed, they continued their journey, though everyone was more alert. Myra led them to a plateau overlooking a distant valley. In the valley below, they could see signs of life: smoke rising from small settlements, fields with growing crops, and structures similar to those in Myra's homeland. Her eyes widened with recognition and relief. This was the place her people had been seeking. Myra guided the group down the path to the valley. As they entered, they were greeted by a small community. The people there were cautious at first, but Myra's presence and words quickly earned their trust. She explained who they were and what had happened to her people after the crash. The community listened carefully, impressed by her courage and leadership. Alex stayed nearby, observing quietly, ready to help if needed. Over the next few hours, Myra and Alex helped her people settle into the new community. They shared supplies, repaired shelters, and offered guidance on farming and resource management. Myra moved among her people with grace and confidence, encouraging them to work together. Alex assisted whenever he could, carrying supplies and helping with heavy tasks. Together, they created a sense of order and hope that had been missing for so long. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the valley, Myra and Alex stood at the edge of the settlement. Myra looked at her people working and laughing, and a small smile crossed her face. Alex stood beside her, sharing the quiet satisfaction of a journey completed. "You did it," he said softly. Myra nodded, her dark eyes reflecting gratitude and strength. She had not only survived but had also restored hope for her people. Myra turned to Alex, placing her hand gently on his arm. "I could not have done this without you," she said. Alex smiled, feeling a warmth he had not known before. Their journey had been dangerous and difficult, but it had also brought them closer and made them stronger. Together, they had faced the unknown, overcome obstacles, and discovered a future full of possibilities. That night, the settlement was calm. Fires burned in small pits, and the stars shone brightly overhead. Myra and Alex sat together near a fire, watching her people rest peacefully. She leaned against him, a silent gesture of trust and gratitude. Alex looked up at the sky, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had tested them both, but it had also proven that courage, trust, and compassion could overcome even the greatest challenges. Myra's people now had a place to rebuild and grow, and she had found her purpose as their leader. Alex had found his role as her companion and protector. Together, they had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear, and together they had triumphed. Their bond was unbreakable, built on shared experiences and mutual respect. As the night deepened, Myra and Alex stood and looked at the stars, thinking of the journey that had brought them here. They knew that the future held challenges, but they also knew they would face them together. With her people safe and a new life beginning, Myra felt hope and determination fill her heart. Alex held her hand, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that together they could overcome anything. The forest, the mountains, and the valley had tested them, but they had survived and thrived. Myra had found her people, reclaimed her strength, and built a home. Alex had discovered courage, loyalty, and love. The journey had ended, but the adventure of life was only beginning. Together, they looked toward the horizon, ready for the future and whatever it might bring.